What if The Simpsons didn't just predict big moments, but quietly mapped out what happens after they spiral out of control? For years, people laughed off the show's warnings as coincidences. But now, as technology accelerates, economies strain, and global tension becomes routine, those old jokes feel less random and more like patterns. Not predictions frozen in time, but signals of what comes next when trends refuse to slow down. 2026 isn't about sudden shocks anymore. It's about consequences, systems taking over, reality shifting, and a future that doesn't arrive loudly but settles in while no one's paying attention. Artificial intelligence was supposed to assist humans. That was the promise. But The Simpsons hinted at something far colder, a future where humans don't just lose jobs, they lose control. In one episode, machines quietly replace workers at the nuclear plant. No chaos, no rebellion, just efficiency. The unsettling part isn't the robots taking over, it's how calmly everyone accepts it. And by 2026, that idea feels uncomfortably familiar. AI no longer just handles tasks, it decides schedules, filters information, approves loans, flags risks, and manages systems humans barely understand anymore. What starts as convenience slowly becomes dependency. Humans train the systems, optimize them, then step aside because the machine is faster, cheaper, and more accurate. But when decisions are automated, responsibility disappears. And when something goes wrong, no one is really in charge. The joke back then was replacement. The warning now is oversight. And as machines begin managing more of daily life, the next step isn't just control, it's how we interact with a world that's no longer fully physical. Phones were once the center of everything. Texting, calling, scrolling. But The Simpsons imagined a future where screens aren't held anymore. They appear. In a future episode, Bart casually receives a holographic message like it's nothing special. No device, no buttons, just a person standing in front of him. Back then, it felt exaggerated. By 2026, it feels like direction. Communication isn't shrinking into smaller screens anymore. It's expanding into space itself, blending digital presence with physical reality. Holograms don't just change how we see people, they change how present we feel. Work meetings, entertainment, even personal conversations become projections, real enough to react to, distant enough to disconnect from. When interaction becomes immersive but optional, attention fragments, and reality starts to feel interchangeable. The phone doesn't disappear, it dissolves into the environment. And once digital presence feels as real as physical space, the line between connection and control begins to blur, especially when the systems behind it are tied to money, access, and survival. The economy rarely collapses with a loud crash. It weakens quietly, and The Simpsons hinted at that kind of slow decay long before it felt real. In one future storyline, leadership changes, debts pile up, and the cost lands on ordinary people. By 2026, that idea feels familiar. Prices rise faster than wages. Stability becomes temporary. Planning ahead feels risky when the ground keeps shifting. Nothing dramatic happens in a single day, yet everything becomes harder to hold on to. What makes this phase dangerous isn't panic, it's adjustment. People adapt to pressure and call it normal. Short-term fixes stretch into permanent solutions. Survival replaces growth. And once enough people are just trying to stay afloat, systems stop being questioned. Financial strain doesn't just change how people live, it reshapes cities, movement, and control, and the way the future decides who gets access and who doesn't. Flying cars were once sold as the ultimate symbol of freedom. No traffic, no boundaries, just open air. But The Simpsons painted a much quieter version of that future, one where movement exists, but only inside invisible limits. In the show's future scenes, flying vehicles blend into everyday life as if they've always been there. No excitement, no celebration, and that detail matters. By 2026, advanced transportation doesn't arrive as a breakthrough. It arrives as infrastructure, regulated routes, approved access, systems deciding where you can go, when you can go, and how long you're allowed to stay there. Cities become smarter, more efficient, and more restrictive, not through force, but through optimization. Convenience replaces resistance. People don't feel controlled because everything works smoothly. But once movement is managed by algorithms, freedom becomes conditional. And when technology begins organizing the skies and the streets, the next question isn't how fast we can move. It's how much control we're willing to give up as science pushes into territory we barely understand. Science has always pushed forward by asking dangerous questions, but The Simpsons played with an unsettling idea. What happens when discovery moves faster than understanding? In one episode, a small black hole appears and starts pulling everything toward it. At first, people treat it like a joke. They throw objects in, curious to see what happens. But it grows, and once it does, control is gone. By 2026, that metaphor feels closer than it should, not because of a literal black hole on Earth, but because science keeps unlocking forces we barely comprehend. Space research accelerates. Unknown phenomena are detected. The universe feels closer, but also less predictable. Curiosity drives progress, yet caution struggles to keep up. The danger isn't catastrophe, it's confidence. The belief that everything can be managed simply because it was discovered. When knowledge expands without limits, consequences don't arrive immediately. They wait. And once humanity realizes it's stepped too far, turning back is no longer an option, which is why fear starts shifting from technology to the body itself. Fear doesn't always come from something new. Sometimes it comes from memory. And The Simpsons hinted that humanity wouldn't face one great health crisis, but many smaller echoes of it. In an old episode, a sickness spreads through contaminated packages, triggering panic before anyone understands what's happening. It was played for laughs, but the idea behind it was serious. By 2026, the fear isn't about another massive outbreak. It's about vulnerability. New strains, unexpected biological threats, situations that don't shut the world down, but keep it permanently on edge. Hospitals stay busy. Warnings feel constant. People grow tired of alarms, even when the danger is real. That's the risk. When fear becomes routine, response slows, trust weakens, and small problems are ignored until they become impossible to contain. Health anxiety doesn't disappear, it lingers. And when people start looking for safety beyond Earth itself, the idea of escape stops sounding like science fiction. When fear stops feeling temporary, humanity starts looking for distance. And The Simpsons turn that instinct into a quiet joke about leaving Earth behind. In one episode, space programs aren't about curiosity anymore, they're about preparation. Training people to live off-world, simulating life on another planet. By 2026, that idea feels less symbolic and more strategic. Mars isn't just a destination, it's a backup plan, a place discussed not as a dream, but as insurance. Space agencies and private projects move forward without spectacle, quiet tests, long-term habitats, conversations about who qualifies and who doesn't. Exploration slowly transforms into selection, and when survival becomes the motivation, space stops belonging to everyone. Escaping Earth doesn't solve its problems, it just changes who gets away from them, while the rest of the world stays behind, dealing with conflicts that never truly ended. Tension used to feel temporary, something that flared up, then cooled down. But by 2026, it feels more like a constant backdrop, and The Simpsons quietly hinted at a world where instability never fully disappears. International disputes no longer arrive as shocking headlines. They overlap. One fades while another takes its place. The atmosphere stays uneasy, but familiar. People adjust to it the way they adjust to bad weather. Unpredictable, uncomfortable, yet strangely routine. The unsettling part isn't escalation itself, it's how quickly it becomes accepted. When ongoing tensions feel permanent, urgency fades, boundaries blur. Each new development feels less dramatic because expectations are already low. And once uncertainty becomes normal, concern stops being loud and starts turning inward. Because when instability never truly ends, it doesn't vanish. It settles quietly, shaping decisions, priorities, and a growing sense that some situations are harder to contain than they appear. As uncertainty lingers, fear doesn't arrive as panic. It accumulates, and The Simpsons often explored that idea through humor, not by showing catastrophe itself, but by showing how people live while expecting it. Instead of dramatic destruction, the show hinted at a world where people constantly feel that something big is coming. Jokes about extreme scenarios weren't meant to predict outcomes. They reflected a mindset shaped by prolonged tension. By 2026, that feeling feels familiar, not alarm, anticipation, a quiet sense that systems are stretched thin and that certain mistakes would be difficult to contain once they happen. This kind of anxiety doesn't come from a single threat. It builds when risks overlap, advanced technology, global instability, decisions made faster than they can be fully understood. Each issue alone feels manageable. Together, they create pressure. People stop thinking in causes and start thinking in consequences. Not why something might happen, but what if it does? Over time, imagination fills the gaps. People prepare mentally for scenarios they hope never arrive, not because they're convinced something will go wrong, but because uncertainty has become permanent. And when fear turns psychological instead of immediate, it stops being loud. It becomes internal, subtle, persistent. That's when anxiety stops being about events and starts shaping how people think about power, responsibility, and who might be steering the future before anyone notices it happening. When people stop reacting to individual events and start questioning direction, attention naturally turns to leadership, not because something dramatic happens, but because uncertainty demands someone to point the way. And The Simpsons often hinted that the future wouldn't be shaped by sudden power grabs, but by symbols that slowly condition expectations. In one episode, a simple campaign badge suggests a future political figure. It isn't framed as a bold prediction, it's almost casual. That's what makes it unsettling. Power doesn't arrive as a shock, it arrives as familiarity. By 2026, this pattern feels increasingly recognizable. Public figures don't need to convince people anymore. They just need to feel inevitable. Politics gradually shifts away from moments and toward narratives. Years before anything officially changes, ideas are already planted. Repetition does the work. Visibility creates comfort. Association replaces debate. Over time, people stop asking if something should happen and start assuming when it will. Choice fades without anyone noticing. Leadership, in this sense, becomes less about action and more about presence. Symbols matter more than decisions. Image matters more than outcomes. And once people emotionally accept a future version of power, resistance feels unnecessary, even unreasonable. The direction feels set, even if no clear decision was ever made. That's the deeper warning hidden beneath the humor. Influence doesn't need force, it doesn't need urgency, it only needs time. And when symbols shape expectations long enough, the future stops being something people actively choose and starts becoming something they quietly agree to. The Simpsons never needed exact dates to feel unsettling. It just understood how patterns repeat, how small shifts stack up, and how the future rarely arrives all at once. By 2026, what once sounded ridiculous doesn't feel impossible anymore, not because it was predicted, but because we slowly walked into it.